The Last of Us Part 2 has become one of the most contentious topics in the gaming industry as of today. Saying the name alone can invoke incredibly powerful emotions, especially now. Pain, anger, sadness. Even one look on public forums will see people passionately arguing for and against this game's contents, in particular, its story. I honestly had no interest in the game before release day. I found the first game to be an interesting examination on the human condition, but I wasn't attached to the characters in ways that most people eventually became. So it might be interesting to find out that I bought the game on release day and completed it 3 days later. So what would cause someone who wasn't interested or invested in the franchise to buy the game on release day and subsequently make an entire review about it? Metacritic. No, seriously, it was Metacritic. So I'm only going to be covering the story of this game, as that's what my main focus was on while playing it, and I don't know what else to say about the graphics and the gameplay beyond pretty colors and interesting mechanics. If you have not played The Last of Us 1 and 2, or have not seen the entire gameplay for these games, I highly recommend you do so before watching this video. Otherwise, you'll probably be totally confused when I start talking about daddy issues and Inigo Montoya later on in the video. Now with all that said, let's finally talk about The Last of Us Part 2 and what it means to be human. I think one of the more interesting aspects of the Last of Us universe is how willing the writers are to show true human nature. I like that even our main characters, the people we spend the entire game learning about, are not infallibly good. They are flawed and selfish and, at times, ignorant as to what their actions mean for everyone around them. The Last of Us 1 ends on a somber note, not from a character death or something terrible happening, but from the realization that this man who we've spent the last 12 hours with is not the same person that we think he is. He's a liar, a selfish liar who would choose to doom the world rather than sacrifice his adopted daughter. It's represented as a good thing in the game, but that's also considering the fact that we embody Joel's character, and we like him and Ellie. Because we were playing as these two for the past 12 hours, we think that our actions are justified. A lot of people have complained about Abby and how her writing is the biggest detriment to this game's story, but I honestly think that the story would not be able to work without her. She's meant to play on your preconceived notion that right and wrong exists in this world, that our hero must triumph over evil. But neither of these two are good characters. I've heard an argument that people make about Abby's portrayal and how it's meant to make her seem like she's a good character. That isn't the case. In fact, that's not the point of her character at all. If Naughty Dog wanted Abby to be the hero, then this intro would be completely different. This game wants you to think that Abby is a ruthless, cold-hearted monster because of what she did, and that's what you should think based on what you've seen of her. But once you understand why she did what she did, then it becomes clear what the writers were going for. By pure comparison, let's look at both Abby and Ellie's journey through their two stories. Ellie is constantly hunting down Abby, killing not only dozens of WLF members, but also close friends of Abby, including a pregnant woman. After every event like this, she does feel regret and pain for what she's done, but she continues onward just to get back at Abby. Abby starts off the game killing an entire group of Seraphites, then gets captured, fights her way through more Seraphites, and eventually abandons the WLF in order to save the lives of two children who are on the run from the Seraphites. I'm not trying to say that Abby is the hero or that Ellie is the real monster. I'm trying to explain that these two people are equal. People who've defended Ellie's actions have completely ignored this game's message of right and wrong not existing in this universe. Trying to justify either of these characters as heroes is pointless, and all that can be said for the both of them is this: they're both survivors. I think one of my favorite things from this game that most everyone has glossed over is the dynamic of Abby and Ellie, and how these two characters aren't as far as most people would like to think. Thinking about both of their journeys in this game is one of the most interesting things that have continued to unravel, as far as its narrative purpose and implications. If you played this game, you might have spotted some parallels between their stories, but it might have not made sense, or it's pointless because writing is bad. Both Abby and Ellie are in established groups before the events of the game, groups that they eventually leave for their own personal reasons. Both are in some fucked three-way couple that gets resolved with bullets. Both of them try to take most of this journey alone, usually pushing away others in order to keep them safe. They're somewhat emotionally detached, and the final thing that I think is the most important about these two, both of them are driven by rage over the death of their father. I totally understand why people don't like Abby as a character, and I think that her being dislikable is somewhat intentional. But saying that she's poorly written or shoehorned into the narrative is just wrong. I think that everyone is entitled to their opinion, but I think you can only go so far with that amount of entitlement. I think a big reason why people have been review bombing this game is because they aren't understanding the story and its implications, and it's due to their unwillingness to see Abby as anything other than a monster. This game requires you to look at both sides of the story, to see these two not as heroes and villains, but as survivors. Survivors blinded by a selfish and arrogant goal. Yeah, Ellie wants revenge for what happened to Joel, but she is so determined to do this that she doesn't understand what she's doing to everyone around her, because her sole focus is just Abby. Revenge is a tale as old as time, told in so many ways that even a story like this has been told before. This is a revenge story, no doubt about that, but it's one that I found more people are completely misrepresenting. Ellie and Abby are both driven by rage over the death of their father, and later on, Abby is also driven by rage over the death of her close friends. Both of these characters are manifestations of what revenge does to not only ourselves, but the people around us. Ellie and Abby cause so much destruction to their friends, and it leaves a lasting effect on our two main characters. An eye for an eye makes the world go blind, and when our two characters are trying to kill each other, we understand why, but we also know it won't solve anything. The solution to revenge isn't to kill a person or torture them to the point where they're unrecognizable, it's to learn how to move on and protect what you have left. It's learning how to cope with loss and how to build a brighter future in spite of it. Revenge is a selfish and dangerous act, one that will hurt the people around you, if not yourself. It will lead you down a spiral of misery and pain that you won't escape from. Just look at Tommy by the end of the game. This is someone who is losing everything, including himself, because of his need for revenge. The story isn't trying to tell you that revenge is justice, it's trying to tell you that revenge is selfish and cruel. Letting your emotions guide your decisions is only going to get people hurt in the end, and not the people you intended. The story isn't about exacting revenge, it's about learning how to cope and move on. But Ellie doesn't move on. Abby gives Ellie so many attempts to just move on from this conflict. Both Abby and Ellie have made their point, but the difference here is that they both have something to lose. For Ellie, it's Dina, and for Abby, it's her newfound humanity and Lev. After potentially months or years later down the line, Ellie still can't let go. We understand why she can't let go, but that doesn't make it right. In this selfish tirade, she finally loses the one thing that she fought to save back in that theater, and marches onward towards a rumor, a chance of revenge. By the end of the game, these two characters are broken. Starved, beaten, wounded, and bloodied. They're at their lowest point here, but Ellie still hasn't changed. Abby has moved on, she understood that this feud between them only causes pain and suffering to her and Ellie, and she's learned the price of revenge. Ellie has yet to learn that lesson. So they fight, in this long, and painful, and ugly fight. These two survivors fight over something pointless. No matter how much Ellie fights, no matter if she kills Abby and Lev right here, right now, it's not going to bring Joel back. So she lets her go. She finally understands that killing Abby is only going to hurt others, not Abby herself. But she understood once it was too late, when she lost everything that was important to her. Ellie's story is a coming-of-age tale. She learns how to cope with loss, and how revenge is a dangerous goal that only brings more pain than it relieves. She learns to accept the past, not only with Abby, but with Joel as well. For Abby, it's a story about regaining one's lost humanity. It's about finding the good in a world full of pain and misery, and protecting it for not only its own sake, but also ourselves. It's about finding hope in a dreary and depressing world, and the journey that it takes to get there. If you think that this game is about anything other than that, then you are sorely mistaken. There's no secret message hidden beneath obscure notes and intricate puzzles, it's just a tale of humanity, and what being human truly means. People are nonsensical creatures. We fight and argue over meaningless things in the grand picture, but we do it because it means something to us. We defend our ideals because it's all that we have, and without our own free thoughts, we wouldn't be different from the monsters in this game. This game is an anomaly. One of the most anticipated games of the last decade has divided its fanbase so drastically that so many people have put off this game without even playing it. Thousands of negative reactions were posted onto Metacritic the Thursday before release, the day before the game even came out. In case you're curious, there was only about 200 early review copies given out, most of which probably had NDAs until release day, so it's pretty safe to say that those reviews aren't for people who actually played the game. I don't think it's fair to judge a game based purely on leaked information and disjointed cutscenes without the proper context and build-up. On top of everything I've currently said, I think one of the biggest takeaways from this game, in particular its launch, is that you can't judge a product without experiencing it entirely. You can't judge an entire album based on one song, you can't judge a story based on its beginning and ending, and you can't judge a game without playing it. Understanding a video game story is much more complex than a lot of people realize, and to categorize a game first presented in an unfinished state is disrespecting the developers of the game. Naughty Dog poured 6 years into this product, and it was released and judged in a state where it misrepresented the story entirely. That, plus this mob mentality dogpile in this game before release, and it's no wonder why people hate the game simply because of misinformation. I'm not saying that people who play the game and understand its meaning aren't allowed to hate it. There's a lot of this game that leaves something to be desired, particularly the pacing and the split between those two stories. I personally find it to be a choice that adds to the story, but it does cause quite drastic tonal shifts when it occurs. So I understand where people are coming from when they say that it isn't told well from that aspect of it. And then again, a story like this would require such careful and precise planning if told differently, and this way of writing has the added benefit of retroactively providing context. This game isn't the worst story ever told. There's so much left in this game that I haven't even brought up in this review, which I think fleshes out the world in a way that allows for so many more creative opportunities. I don't think this series needs another game after this. I think a DLC in the vein of most Naughty Dog games would be nice, but I don't think it's necessary. The arcs for our characters are over with, and there isn't anything else that we need to know about the world anymore. The ending isn't a beautiful send-off where everyone's happy and jumping for joy, but it captures the game's themes better than anything else could. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to continue the discussion down in the comments, feel free to do so. Be respectful to everyone who comments down below, whether you agree with them or not, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day.